The purpose of this communication is to address this idea of having sovereignty, of being sovereign in a physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, in every area, intellectual. Sovereignty is a birthright, but many of us have given that away because we've gotten comfortable. We've gotten hypnotized by distractions and by a seeming GOVT, which seems to want to sell this country, maybe, or put it through some hardships, but not really explain what's really happening. And I know there's some sort of word called transparency, but it isn't actually doing anything for the little guy or for the you and me or for the everyday person, because what they're not saying is way more important than what is being said. And so in this communication, I'm going to explain what I would expect to see out of a king, a queen, a leadership, which is actually looking out for its people, which really wants the community and country to thrive and wants to build a nation of rigorous people, of people who have that, what we used to think was the American grit, what we would call American fortitude, right? So because this country is young, I don't really know that we ever had that as a nation called America, but I do know that the people who lived here previous to the name being called America were that. They are that, and we are still here. So I'm reading this book. It's called The New America. And I've read a couple of other books by the same author. And I've read so much in terms of the Seraphim and Anunnakis and Akhenaten, right? And the Cabal, the QBL, Kabbalah. And what it appears to be is that we are not all human. The country was founded on seraphic serpent energies, and this is what is running the country. This is what the country's leadership is answering to. And this is what lies dormant in all of us. And so I say that to say this. In these ancient texts, which speak about America and what it's to be, it is projected to be a country where there are perpetual slaves. The enslavement of the original people to this land was predicted in the 1400s by people known as Francis Bacon and John Dee, who were in communication with spiritual entities which spoke on these things, which claimed to have claimed to have a direct connection with the organizers of our world. And this is important because it points specifically to what's coming and what most people may not realize is coming. So though we're going through this phase of a new era, or a NWO, let me say it that way, this isn't actually new. This began way back during Akhenaten's time, and you can see that with all the different secret societies which came about from that point. You can also see it when you look at the pattern and all those saviors, so-called paternalistic saviors, so-called patriarchal saviors, who are coming to do something called reorganize humanity, which humanity is organized based on number, structure, archetype, and programming. Okay? But when these people want to dictate how the world is going to run, they don't do it from a nationalistic point of view. There is no such thing as nationalism anymore. There's no such thing as our leaders are only in charge of our country. They are in a collective. So all the nationalist leaders are in their own rank of elite nationalism, and they're looking out for their bottom dollar, which supports the tripartite Illuminati. And that's important foundation so that we understand what we're dealing with and why we don't see servant leaderships in any country, specifically America. Right now, let's discuss why, because of the foundations of this country, are we facing a new NWO, which will usher in a new type of Christianity. It'll be called Christian nationalism, and why it won't look exactly like it did before. There will be an improvement, but it will still be along the lines of this new age spirituality, this Saint Germain as the new leader, probably in 200 years, but the foundations are being laid right now. Grand spiritual awakening is going to happen, which I have a theory on that. You'll see my pyramid video later as to how that will manifest. And then what we're going to see is this whole AI God, where people are going to rely so heavily on machine learning, robots, artificial intelligence to do all of their art, music, creation, writing, their physical work. And then we're going to see a human 3.0 where they're chipped and they want to be chipped, or we'll see a revolutionary consensus of people who are awakening to what they are biologically. And then there will be those two branches of the earth. So what is serpent leadership? Serpent leadership, these are all different categories and races of entities, beings. So when I say serpent leadership, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the patriarchal serpent, or the downward facing snake, as in the ancient translation of the Kundalini energy. Whereas it wasn't for ascension, but it was for more Kundalini fire, but in the downward respect. In the root chakra, you activate that unsacred sexual energy to create things that are kind of what we would call typically dark or destructive, where the Kundalini, where we know it to be, is a balance of the two. It is dark and it is light. It's both. You need both as they wind up the center. So Shumna. So you need three actually. And as it rises into an awakening for all of us, for everyone, not just me, not just you, not just spiritual people against non-spiritual people, because all of it is spiritual. So the distinction here is that at some point we have to realize we're under a negative patriarchal serpentine type leadership instead of the balance with a feminine, sacred female Kundalini type energy. Destruction, right? It's all about the power of the feminine that has been all but wiped out or all but marred, right? And so this paternalistic serpent leadership is more like electricity. It's more like sharp edges, straight lines, logic, order, brute force. It's not about taking a balanced approach and consensus from everyone. And so what we're seeing then is how the world will be slowly destroyed. It will be slowly removed from the original state of everybody participating to eventually having a complete communism in this and capitalism in this country. Why aren't our leaders explaining to people what's actually happening? And so what is a balanced leadership? Our ancestors would set up servant leadership where there may be a panel who were the spokesman for everyone else. However, there will be no silos. There wouldn't be a cabinet. It would be one member of every family, at least, would be representative in the government. And each family would all have a voice in how the community is run. There is no permanent leader. There are no votes for elected officials every few years, keeping us restarting every 4 years. The novice comes in every 4 years just to be told what to do by the pundits or whoever paid for that administration to get in office in the first place. That's ridiculous. We would all work for each other. We would share. But because people haven't seen true hardship, and even when impoverished, we aren't still seeing true impoverished hardship, because in this country we do have some safeguards. We have AFDC, we have food stamps, we have social services that gives a little bit of money, that gives almost what we could consider a handout, even though we may have worked for that. In the reality of the world, if you look at how nature works, there's no such thing as this. These are all fantastical ideas, which in a stable, loving community, these are beautiful. But because they are tools to remove people from their personal sovereignty and their personal responsibility, they can be used against us. Such that if you're relying on the GOVT to give you a check of any of the kind that I just said, then you're relying on the same entity which has serpent origins, which is tied to the tripartite Illuminati, which is not telling you what's coming, which is run by an elitist agenda. And they are not looking for your sovereignty on any level. So again, because people have not been exposed to these hardships in almost 200 years, meaning these people who had to hunter, gather, hunt, right? Eat what they find and kill, even if it's a plant or bird or whatever it is, to fulfill their physical bodies. Most people in our generation, even if they're impoverished, have a grocery store, have relied on packaged foods. And so we haven't developed grit, nor self-sufficiency, let alone the knowledge to procure physical sovereignty. And that is a real problem. How can we expect to have soul sovereignty, spirit or essence sovereignty, if we don't have physical sovereignty? And this is not being addressed in the media or by our official leadership teams. Were we dealing with servant leadership instead of serpentine leadership, what would we have? What would we see? First off, we will see true transparency and community. We would see messaging coming out to say, hey, everyone, start to grow a garden. You will see in your mail seeds and instructions for growing food. There will be no penalties or you need to get contracts to allow you to use your own water, food, construction in your own property. You would see announcements of the changes which are coming. You will see the abolition of the programming, such as in music, in movies, and all other industries of control. We would have frank conversations about preparedness, about meditation, about mindfulness, about getting in touch with nature, about cultivating the land, what the soil really is, the life in the soil, animal husbandry, herbal home remedies, and dowsing methods for finding water. Our ancestors knew this stuff. We will be urged to lighten up, get physical fitness about ourselves, mental fitness, spiritual fitness, emotional fitness. If we were in a nation of ancestors who were servant leaders, they would want you to fortify your homes. They would want you to be ready and stay ready so you don't have to ever get ready. We would see education about how easy it is to grow your food at this moment in time, switching off the grocery store to home-grown organic foods. We will see education about how to take store-bought foods and multiply them such as sweet potatoes, all potatoes, white potatoes, how to grow rice in water in a bucket from store-bought rice, how to collect and take care of baby chicks, chickens, hens, roosters, eggs, incubating, and love and care for your animals. We would be urged in concepts of stoicism. We will be urged to rely and love our neighbors. We will be urged in togetherness. Imagine a country that is about its people, that's really about its people. Imagine your family or whoever, whatever social group you love the most. If you could get everyone on board with this spiritual awareness and you guys could work as a team, and then you get your neighbors involved, we wouldn't even know what's going on in the world. But most people are in the sunken place. Most people are in the sunken place or the drunken place. And that is not their fault. When it becomes their fault is when they awaken and they do nothing about it. But should we have servant leadership styles instead of serpentine leadership styles, we would be pulling ourselves up by the bootstraps. We would have the younger generation looking out for the older generation. We would have respect for the older generation to give wisdom to the younger generation. We would have skills, not only physical skills, we'd have communication skills. We'd have spirit walking skills. We would have lucid dreaming, daydreaming skills. We could recultivate the perfect dream for all of us. We would be telepathic. We would understand the hidden messages in water, in vegetables, in light. We would understand our inner source. We would understand the contributions from all civilizations to the global whole, instead of chasing money, chasing manifestations for our individual progress. Our collective spiritual essence is calling. It's pulling us into the cave of wonders. It's sending out these synchronistic messages and messengers to support our return to wholeness. But the mind and all these programs and the life and all these memories and stories and triggers of the game matrix, flashing lights, green light means go, red light means stop, yellow means slow down. You know what I mean? All this stuff that we are signaled to respond to, we're like Pavlov's dog. But if we take a moment and realize, hey, this is an SHTF moment. And we have been programmed to wait to see what's going to happen. We'll pull our own ass out of this conundrum. And we'll talk to as many people as we can and explain how food works. And we will cultivate some ideas of having fortitude and how fasting and deprivation are important to learn, not as a way of life, but as a means to self-regulate and break the spell of addiction, to break the spell of the artificial idea that we have a stable economy, that we have a stable GOVT, or we have a stable opportunity to awaken our essence. When we realize that nobody's going to save you, no one's going to save me, but we can resonate with each other, we can act as messengers for each other, we will take these kind of messages and we'll say them in our own way, and we'll share it with whoever can hear it. We will start our own YouTube channel. We will start our own Instagram, not for our ego's sake, because this is not about ego. This is about the collective. So if each one reaches one, then each one can teach one. And over time, again, this is linear time, because in essence, in reality, none of this is actually a problem. But if you want to get real with it right now, so we won't be repeating this cycle, reincarnating back into some kind of created dream that we fell for, then we will want to get these messages out, grab ourselves some seed, grab some store-bought materials, and cultivate our land, whatever you have, grow bags, whatever you got, sunny window, and we would have ourselves in a position where no matter what's coming, we are able to go without if we need to. So what? We won't be tricked into some agreement because we're desperate. We will be able to maintain and hold our sovereignty because we're not in fear. We won't be so hungry, so nervous that we can't feed our children, that we align with any old thing that comes down the pipe. And so I don't believe in scarcity, lack, fear, or this propaganda. But I do know the power of the collective. And I do know that we've been in relatively good times, not taking mortar fire. There's no batarams coming to your door. There's no battleships at our harbors. There's no aerial assaults. There's no tanks driving up and down the street. At this moment, we're good. We can meditate all damn day long. But should the shit change? Should it switch up and this become that kind of country? Wouldn't you have wanted to be ready for that so that you can maintain your progress? That is what this is about. This is not about fear mongering. This is about keeping it absolutely real. Keeping it real and taking our head out of the sand, not being lost in la la land of the programmed love and light, fake spirituality nonsense. And not being so separate from my body. I am not my body. No, you're not your body, but you need that body to bounce up out of here. You need your body because you're here. Once we get to that point where we are able to come and go in our body at our leisure, we're in control of the dream, then hey, that's all good. We can pop in and help people, pop back out, help people. And that is the goal. But until then, fortify yourself, fortify your neighbor, fortify your friends and family, and share these messages in your own way.